Today on Caffeinated Creatives, we're sitting down with Orphan Prodigy, the visionary project of Queens-born multi-instrumentalist and songwriter Ian Keller. After nearly 20 years fronting an alternative rock band, Ian stepped into the world of production and engineering, a move that quickly pulled him back into songwriting and sparked the creation of Orphan Prodigy's debut album, Medication for a Modern World. Drawing from the 90s and 2000s rock and metal and blending it with electronic dance, house, and trance, Ian has carved out a sound that pushes rock into the future. Dance, cinematic, and unapologetically modern. It's the sound of now. Orphan Prodigy now tours both virtually and in person with Ray Dreamer, Alan Tavel, and Daniel Keller, bringing a hybrid performance model that reflects where music is heading, not where it's been. Today we dive into the journey, the evolution, the technology, and the creative fire behind Orphan Prodigy. Welcome, Orphan Prodigy, Ian Keller, to today's episode of Caffeinated Creatives. Whew, that was a doozy, my friend. That was a doozy.
I'm here. I'm ready. I'm caffeinated. Let's go.
You're caffeinated, beautiful. I already drank too, so I'm like trying to get that hype back in.
I brought my cup.
Awesome. What is your to-go coffee that you always have? What's your favorite?
Well, if I have time, I like to make my own latte, just an oat milk latte. But
Nice.
lately I've been just, we don't have time, and my Danielle, who's in the band, actually really really loves the peppermint mocha latte from Starbucks, so we've been getting that.
Nice. I'm big into oat milk lattes now. I got big into coffee like years ago when I realized I spent way too much money on coffee, and I said I better learn how to make a good cup of coffee.
Yeah. It's an art. It's those days grinding before I was able to make this into a business for myself and a full-time career. I was a barista. I've done all kinds of jobs, but the best one
No
was
kidding.
yeah, I've done everything. I've been a export receiver at the JFK International Airport. I've driven forklifts. I've taken out trash. I've been a delivery boy. Worked at a
Holy
pharmacy.
cow.
But the main thing that I always go back to, and I think a lot of artists gravitate towards being baristas, and it's just an easy kind of pickup gig, and you learn a lot, and you really do learn how to make a good cup of coffee. So it's fun.
Oh wow. Do you have a favorite bean type or
Uh,
origin?
I do love Colombian. Anything Colombian is always gonna. I don't know about a specific bean type, but anything that comes from Colombia, I'm gonna drink. I also, it's worth noting I have a caffeine sensitivity. So I have to be careful. But I that doesn't stop me from drinking coffee. Even if it causes a panic attack, I become
Mamma
better on
mia.
stage. So
Wow. I love a good Colombian too. My brother-in-law, he roasts coffee, and when I learned that, I got like so hype because I wanted to talk to him forever about roasting, and he ended up gifting me a mini coffee roaster for Christmas 2 years ago.
nice.
So I started buying. The first season of this podcast was actually all coffees roasted by me. And every time somebody came, I brewed an espresso or like a mocha with one of those
Yeah,
stovetop thingies.
yeah,
That's kind
very
of like
cool.
what inspired this show was Hot Ones. I'm like,
hmm
instead of chicken, let's drink coffee.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm on board with that because I can't eat spicy food, so I'm all about let's get caffeinated instead.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Ethiopian. That's my favorite, and I
Yeah.
prefer like a light medium roast.
Me too. Medium
And
roast.
they
Yeah.
do tend to be more difficult to get the
Yeah.
ratios and get the recipe right. But once you dial it in, it's just awesome. And what was interesting is when you're roasting for espresso specifically, you have to wait a couple of weeks for the beans to degas. I don't know if you heard that before.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting. You cannot just go ahead, roast it, and then and grind it and brew it because it won't be primed.
Well, that just makes it more special, I think, like
Right.
it just makes it more of a process. I think for me, like as a, as a songwriter, as an artist, it's always nice to have like a process, I guess. And so
Mm,
that's what I enjoy about, like, I'm also kind of like getting into home cooking a little bit more these days.
mm.
And I have been, Gordon Ramsay's like my hero. But, as far as coffee goes, it's like it is a process and it's a very enjoyable one. You just take your time. You have to get the grind right. Yeah, like you said, you mentioned ratio. You getting the ratio, getting that rich color. Um, when you start that first pour, you got to get that like nice caramel sort of look to it. Nothing lighter, nothing darker. It's just got to be that perfect color, and you know that you've
Yeah,
hit the mark,
yeah.
and it's so rewarding.
It is a process, and it's almost a, I don't even want to say almost. It's a meditative process.
Yeah,
You like
absolutely.
weigh everything. You're like, okay, it's 22 grams. I want a 2-to-1 ratio. I want 44 grams out, and it's gotta do it in under like 40 seconds or whatnot. And it's crazy. It's like cooking. I had no idea what science goes into coffee
Yeah.
before I I started learning how to make my own coffees.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful way to just kind of start the day.
But anyway,
I sound
so
like a
for
commercial.
people, I know I was actually thinking about putting some B-roll here when like the honey, golden honey of the coffee coming into
Yeah,
the
that
cup. I don't know what I'm doing with my fingers here, but anyway, so for people meeting you for the first time as they're listening to this and watching this episode, who is Orphan Prodigy? Who is Ian Keller?
well, Orphan Prodigy is me. I'm a guy. I'm this guy from Queens. And yeah, I've been doing music since I started when I was 10, so back in 1999, 98. I don't know. No, I've been doing this a long time professionally. I started really young. What got me into music was the Offspring. My cousin, my German cousin, got me into. She got the Offspring's single "Why Don't You Get a Job," and she played it over the stereo. And the first line instantly just like had a curse word in it, and it just got me. That's what I knew I was going to do music. I wanted to shock people and just kind of be expressive. And yeah, at 10 years old, I got my first guitar and was in did my first band for almost 20 years. And in 2019, it was clear that that wasn't going to work anymore. And so I actually went through like this agoraphobic episode where I like couldn't leave the house and stuff. And
Mm.
that required 6 months of like intensive like therapy where I was like taken out to like really crowded places and stuff. And they kind of said like, yeah, like it seems like, you've just been overexposed and like, to, being on the road 5, 6 days a week and, barely making ends meet and, just doing that constantly. And the lifestyle is just it's not going to work for you. And I was like, all right, well, this is all I know how to do. But, anyway, so they're like, "Well, maybe you should reconsider what you're doing in the industry." And so, I thought about that. It was really hard to accept that, but I thought about it really hard, and I was like, "Well, I guess the next logical thing to do would be to, step behind the scenes and go into production." And so
Whoa,
I
who
found
said
this.
that? Who told you that you might need to reconsider what you're doing?
Well, I guess from a therapist point of view, it's like how do you continue to make strides in your life without kind of like you know without having a rebound incident. And so I think it was good advice, but and honestly, it was the best advice because what
Mm.
happened, I ended up finding this school in Arizona, the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences in Mesa in Phoenix, and yeah, went there in the summer of 2019, and I started learning production. And like 3 weeks into the program, they introduced us to Logic and Pro Tools. And as an artist, like you're in the booth and you're like the engineer is like, oh, he's using Pro Tools, it's great. So I was doing it for the first time, And Logic, when they got me into Logic, I had already written all of my material on MIDI. So like I've always been like like kind of like a MIDI person. And so when I got into Logic, it was really like just like heaven, like I wrote my first song the day that we got introduced to Logic. It's actually the second song on the album. It's called Getaway, which is the first single. And yeah, it's just like, from there it was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do production. I have to go back to being an artist. And so Orphan Prodigy was born kind of going to that school. I ended up graduating, but I ended up writing
Mm.
like half the album during my time there. So,
Wow, interesting. I'm a big Logic guy too. I think Logic is so well crafted. It's so easy to learn that you
yeah,
don't, it's not as overwhelming as like looking at Pro Tools or, God forbid, Digital Performer.
right, absolutely.
They
I
all
think
look super rough, but interesting. So, what is the mission for Orphan Prodigy?
well, we do
What are you inspired by?
I think what inspires me most is just like I think like I don't know, like it's gonna sound pretentious, but like I don't understand, writer's block. Like when people tell me they get writer's block, I'm like, oh, that sucks, man, or that sucks. Like I don't I wish I wish I knew what to do, but like I don't really suffer from that. I write 3 songs a day, or 3 pieces of music a day, and it's just a practice that I've done since I was 16, and I found out one of my heroes did that. Rivers Cuomo from Weezer does that.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I think the mission is to just be creative. It's not it's kind of like a never-ending well of thought, and I think life has definitely influenced, especially this record. I think my experiences with agoraphobia and accepting who I am finally in my at the ripe old age of 30 something, like finally being able to lean into that person that's been kind of just underneath the surface the whole time. The world, there's observations and stuff. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world right now that deserves attention and focus. And I don't know, it's just like an endless stream of consciousness for me. I there's never a dull moment in my brain in terms of inspiration. What could inspire me?
I love that. That's awesome. I think it's also practice, like writing songs and being creative. There are days where it's better. There are days where it's not as good as you'd hope, but it's still, you gotta do it. Just like going to the gym. It's like a focus thing. I think if folks say that they have problem, not a problem, like they're going through writer's block. I think there are systems that you can utilize to kind of get out of that writer's block, but also you gotta do things that kind of helps you get out of that writer's block, whatever they mean when they say writer's block.
Yeah. I mean, like, everybody's different, and, respect to those people who have their practices, or have like you're saying, it is like going to the gym. And I think you do need to train your brain to sort of like it is literally a muscle. So you have to kind of train it
Yeah.
to, respond to stimuli, right? So, yeah, I mean, everybody has a process. That's what makes us all different and, I guess unique in a way. And everybody
Now let
has
me
a
ask you
different way.
something. What does creativity mean to you?
Uh, what does creativity mean to me?
Yeah.
Creativity, I think it's my lifeblood. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't creating. I think everything I do, there's some sort of creativity in it. My brain doesn't shut off. I suffer from like chronic insomnia. So, I'm sitting awake at 4, 5, 6, it gets bad, but, there's a part of me that wouldn't trade it for anything because it's so exciting and inspirational. It's fun. It's fun to just wander all the time, wander endlessly.
I understand, yeah. I mean, most creative stuff that I do, funnily, it always comes in the night. Like even last night, I was probably up until like 2 a.m. creating like promotional pictures and stuff like that. And sometimes even the jams that I do mess around in the night where I put all my like fears or whatever aside and just do it for fun for myself turns out to be the best thing, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So I get it. I get it. My mind is constantly running and running.
Yeah, and you know, the caffeine doesn't doesn't really help. The caffeine
Interesting.
the caffeine it definitely perpetuates the problem of creativity. The problem and the solution of creativity.
Interesting. Let me see. Where do you draw your inspirations from?
You know, like I said, I think it's, you know, a combination of life experience and also just kind of the nature of the way my brain works, like where I'm just constantly wandering, creating worlds and, you know, like every song that I write is like a chapter in a book. You know, it's not like I don't look at songs as like singles. I look at them as like, you know, it's a lot, you know, one song, you know, a collection of 12 songs is like an entire experience. It's not just, you
Mm,
know, a single, you know. I don't
mm.
believe in singles. I don't think that's like I just I like an entire experience, and I think that's kind of where, you know, you asked where my inspiration comes from. It comes from an experience, like a life experience or, you know, a mental or creative experience. Like everything has to come from this big picture, you know?
I like the way you said that because I think music, you know, is like it's an experience thing. Like whenever I performed, I always thought of this, like what kind of experience can I create for the listeners, for the viewers that they can enjoy. And it's not just music, but like a performance thing. How is it that, what are they also seeing? I always loved bands concerts where it's like it's not only for my ears, but I'm like, whoa, that looks awesome. Like you
Yeah.
think about what the concert looks like, and yeah, it makes it more than just about music, which um, we can also talk about like what your thoughts with AI and things like that, because I think there are good side and there can be bad sides. And definitely, I don't think it's gonna take away like the human aspect of the experience of music.
Yeah, I don't think AI is inherently as dangerous as people make it out to be. I think that it can be used as a tool.
Mm,
It is, you know, AI is a mirror, and it's only going to be as good as what you put into it. And like you said, the human element is something that can't be replicated by a code or an algorithm. Um, so I don't think that AI is inherently dangerous, but there are, like I said, you know, like, you know, I talk about using it as a tool. There are people like, you know, bad players that like labels, you know, are pushing to have major, you know, major label artists be AI acts, which I think is inherently wrong. You know, why would you, it's like, you know, it's like taking a job away from a cashier or something, you know, um, which eventually will start happening. And I think, you know, you're going to see a lot more automation and things like that. But again, you don't, it's a tool and it has to be, I think, treated with respect because it's powerful. And in the end, it's just how you use it. You know, you
agree.
know, I think you can integrate it into your workflow um, in ways that help and don't, you know, take away. It's important that you retain the human element in art. Like I was listening to a cover of Everlong, like an AI generated cover of the song Everlong by Foo Fighters, and I was like, oh, and Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I was like, wow, this is actually really like banging. This is actually like I would listen to this, and it's cool and stuff, but it's novelty. It's not like I'm not gonna like go out and like, you know, like seek this out. It's just like something. It's just like I said, it's a novelty thing, but and it's almost like a joke. It's almost like a parody, right? But in terms of taking something seriously, like a, you know, a serious AI act or artist, you know, I don't think you'll ever be able to capture the range of what a human can
My
do.
question would be what would the human input in that be? So if there is like an AI artist? Like, is it because the person behind it just doesn't want to become a public personnel and they rather create like this persona that will be the public eye of them? In that case, I mean, they could be doing most of the work, but they're not the ones. Like, let's say I created like a complete different avatar, but it's all my music fused with some elements being AI. But
Yeah.
for the public eye, they see a complete different personnel.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to it being a tool and how you utilize it. There are probably visual artists that would say, "Hey, well, why don't hire me instead to put to create that avatar for you." But so again, it just goes back to it being a tool and how you utilize it. It's not that it's a bad thing. I think that it's just something that we need to take care and be very cautious about in terms of how we use it, because obviously you don't want AI to automate, like national defenses and things like that. That would be scary. Then we're talking
What's
Terminator.
interesting about technology, if we look at music and the technological advancements that happened throughout the years, like, instead of 2 channels, then you can record 4 channels and then more channels, DAWs, MIDI, auto tune. A lot of these technological advancements were to take care of some form of a human error, which is, oh, like, I can't sing now completely perfectly. Let's use a tool to tune it, which there were people who created something interesting like T-Pain, where he turned his voice into a complete different sounding like instrument, or this, it's more of an effect in that case. But then so I guess my thought is the ability that you gain over years and years of hard practice versus using a technology to bridge the gap between perfect, or what somebody could do with a lot of practice, versus what I could just fix with this app.
Yeah.
So
Like you mentioned autotune as an example, and I think that's a really good point. It is ultimately just, all these plugins are really just algorithms kind of just changing the way that the signal is manipulated, right? And so AI is kind of like an extension of that in a way. But again, it is a tool and it's how we use it. Though when you're talking about autotune and plugins, it's more like, okay, the size of that algorithm is like this, where, true generative AI is like, scaled to like, there's a lot more involved in that. So
right, but
I
also like there's the aspect where you can infuse that into your creative process. So let's say I get my guitar, my bass, and I write a song or elements of a song. So it's either parts of a song or a full song, then upload it into one of the most popular platforms, Suno. I don't know how familiar with it, but when you upload it and you use it as like a bass guide, you get these 3 levers. One is for stylistic, one is for weirdness, which I set it in a flipped direction, and then there is the audio influence. Usually I use audio influence 100%, and the other 2 are as little as possible, because
right,
I see that sometimes when you have more percentage on the first 2, it generates stuff that you don't really want. But if you do it the other way, then it kind of just reinterprets whatever you uploaded and creates something more like a new production, or something that you can, if you create a bunch, then you can like give and take and download whatever you like and infuse it with your own production or re-record it.
right.
Now, I don't think there's a question in there, but for instance, not for instance, I was at an AI conference for musicians, more like a meetup, and there was an interesting gentleman who was a intellectual property lawyer and copyright lawyer, and he was talking about um, creating a system where songs can be analyzed, and if it's fully human made, it will get a human certification.
That's
And then there
interesting.
would, yeah. So there's gonna be an episode with him in the future. I just booked him in, and we will be talking about all that, which I'm excited to hear what your thoughts would be. And then there will be like songs that are hybrids, and I asked him like, what is a hybrid song? And he said, if you write your lyrics, but then you generate the background for it. And I'm like, okay, now what if the entire song is your idea, but you used AI to kind of revamp the production, but it keeps all of the same writing? Then who owns that intellectual property or the master?
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean, there's a lot of bases that we still have to cover, you know, both from a legal standpoint and from an ethical standpoint, and there's just so much that we could talk about in regards to AI. Um, but
yeah.
you know,
And also like what would you consider originality then? Like
exactly, it's tough, and I think
so
like
like I'm sure you and I we both had influences as musicians where nobody wakes up in the morning and just learns something without having some form of an external stimuli. Like I've listened to AC/DC, fusion, and all this stuff, and without even knowing, passively, your brain kind of learns certain things that you might be recreating without you knowing.
yeah,
So, like, in a way, we are also learning by copying. And I remember when I walked past rehearsal rooms at the school I went to, everybody was playing everybody else's licks. So, like, it's part of the step. To be original, you gotta be kind of copying to learn. And you feel free to interject. So there's a copying aspect in the learning process, and then you make them your own, and then you put in your own like flavors and such. But otherwise, how do you learn?
right, right, exactly. That's true.
I mean, I don't know. What is your thought?
You know, are we talking about AI or are we talking about?
Well, I guess it's a weird kind of loop. Like we as humans also learn by copying as part of the learning process.
Oh
You know, like
yeah,
we're listening to music, we're listening to instruments that other people did, and that's kind of like what AI does, but in like a split second, it can
right.
recreate something that, let's say, if you and I sit down and like, let's write a song in the style of this, because in writing for film and TV, that's a very usual thing where you're writing in a style of somebody.
I think AI is really great for the pattern recognition that it is. As I said earlier, it's basically a mirror, and
Right.
I think there's a great really result that you get when you want to distill an idea into something that's very digestible, and AI is great at that. If you need like, I can see, how I can't imagine what it's like for teachers now, who have to deal with like, AI written essays or whatever that are just so like perfectly written. But like I said, like for me, I use AI to kind of, if I have like some like really crazy idea or something, and I want to just kind of distill it into something that, like I said, is more digestible, I might just kind of throw all that information at it and ask for like kind of like, summarize this in 2 sentences or 4 sentences, so that I can understand what it is I'm exactly trying to articulate. And
Mm.
it's great for that. But it's more of I use it more of as a conceptual tool. Like let me throw a bunch of information at you and then tell me what exactly it is I'm trying to communicate here. and then it'll tell me, oh, you're really just talking about A, B, and C. And I think it's great for that. But I haven't really explored writing, with an AI. I think with my album, speaking to AI, I really try to. This is really an electronic rock album. Medication for Modern World is an electronic rock album. It's literally me using digital instruments to create music, but I'm retaining the human element. I'm telling the digital instruments what to do through MIDI, and
Right.
so I think it's a really interesting time for my album, particularly to be out and about when there is this conversation about machine learning and AI and all this stuff. And then, where do humans fit into that, and where does AI fit into that? So I think it's really cool to have music out right now that is very machine based, but also retaining 100% the human element in terms of the writing and the crafting and the direction of it and the production of it. So,
Oh yeah. Now, what
have
does
to plug my
creative?
album at some point.
Oh no, no, we were gonna talk about your album, and I have a lot of plans to segue into the album. I wanted to ask you, when you think about the word creative entrepreneurship, what comes to your mind?
Yeah, I think this is the age for being an entrepreneur. Everybody and their mother and their sisters and their daughters and their brothers are all entrepreneurs now. I mean, you kind of have to be. I mean, every time I open my phone in the morning, it's like, just like an entire family is like selling their entire life online. Oh, like and subscribe to watch us, every single day. It's like, but you kind of, it's interesting. My business wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the pandemic. Orphan Prodigy wouldn't be what it is without the pandemic. I wouldn't have started all the live streaming in the basement, and I wouldn't have developed all the songs and the model for it. So yeah, I mean, that's when you talk about the entrepreneur, and we talk about the age of the entrepreneur. There's no better time for it really than now.
When you think of entrepreneurship, what words come to your mind?
Creatives, people who want to be, people who want to, kind of be business people. And because in 2025, if you're in a band, you have to figure out a way. It's never been harder, and it's also never been easier to turn your band or your musical your musical idea into a business. And like I said, it's really just about time, patience, effort, learning your demographics, all these things. There's so much that you can really dive into with this topic. But essentially the bottom line is knowing who your target audience is, knowing how to, do Google SEO and stuff like that. And really just being consistent.
On a short side note, SEO is not gonna be here for us or with us for a long time because of the whole AI. I've been seeing this new thing called it essentially means AI optimization, because now most people go to LLM to look for something and it's already trying to give you the answer, so your website has to be optimized for the AI engine.
Oh, yes, yeah, I didn't know that.
I just looked up the other day, and I was looking at another podcast, and this guy was saying, oh, back in the day we used to pay thousands of dollars to own like a word. Now all that SEO will be gone because of the whole LLMs. And if you go to Google, like the first thing you get is what Google AI found about the topic that it thinks you were looking for.
Right.
Which is already telling you that it's not necessarily keyword based, but what the large language model thinks you're looking for.
Right. It's true, and they've integrated that into every platform, like Facebook and Meta. It's everywhere, actually.
It's everywhere. So we were doing this music video, and it took 36 hours to do it. We generated like 300 plus clips, and I used like 4 different apps. We taught the whole Higgsfield AI. I created a whole avatar of this artist with 36 pictures, and we wanted to do this music video where everything takes place in the Himalayas, in the Kathmandu. So the whole thing was about a personal journey of him finding like enlightenment and happiness through like introspectiveness with nature. And he has done that, but he didn't do any videos. But what was crazy is we put in actual photos of his travels, and we were able to create stuff that he was like, dude, that's exactly what it looked like. I'll have to send it to you, but what I've learned there is that the technology was changing so rapidly that even like a week or 2 weeks, you're already getting a better quality stuff. So it's like, is it worth to do it right now, or we'll wait a little bit more and then everything will be so
Yeah.
much better, you know? But also, at the time, we used Google VO3, and it costed $160 for a month for 12,500 credits. Within a month, they upped the credits twice as much and made the lower tier model nearly free, which at the time we were nearly done with the music videos. So
Right.
if you wait, you might even find that the same thing costs less and is going to be easier to use. It's just an interesting technology, but
Yeah.
the stuff that
It's
you can do with it, again, you have to have your creativity and your thought. If you put shit in it, you'll get shit back.
exactly. It's only
You
as good
know?
as you are. It's only as good as the artist.
And that's more or less that interesting story there. I don't know where I was going with it. This thing kind of got my attention away, but I was thinking, what inspired the name Orphan Prodigy?
Yeah, I think it's really just about my first band was called The Rejects, and when we got signed, we had to change our name to avoid lawsuits because there were so many bands called The Rejects. But I've always kind of identified with outliers and being different, and I have a very different sort of family structure, non-traditional family structure, and I always kind of leaned into it. I never really felt bad about it, but I always noticed the differences. Like, I had 2 gay parents, and I was adopted, and so there's like the typical bullying stuff, but it's like whatever. But like now it's like I've kind of just accepted all of that stuff that made me different. And so I wanted, with Orphan Prodigy, the name, I wanted it to retain that element of feeling like an outcast, but also put it in a more positive light. And so Orphan and Prodigy aren't necessarily words. I'm not saying I'm an orphan and I'm a prodigy. It's just 2 kind of colors that are coming together to create a more positive image of a past version, of the
I
name.
love it. I love it. I think it's a really unique name and
Thank
very
you.
memorable. So it's awesome that you used that your past to create a name that is a kind of you identify with, but also you, like you said, you positified it. You made it positive.
Sorry, I'm cold.
Oh, I'm cold a little bit too. Thankfully, the heat kicked in. I
Yeah,
like that shirt, the sweatshirt. That's awesome.
thanks. It's like Danielle got this for me. It's like either Cuddle Duds or Barefoot Dream, something like that. I don't know what it is. It's very
It looks
soft.
cozy.
It's very
Looks
cozy.
cozy.
It's very cozy.
Dang, dang. I gotta see where your friend got that. I need me one too.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I fall asleep in this thing all the time. It's like a second skin.
I remember what I was gonna ask. So, what do you think bands, artists are lacking when it comes to not being able to find how to turn their band, their craft into a sustainable career?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed just from the outside looking in is that there are so many bands out there that are putting up their uploading content and like, it's like 30-second clips and the things, but they lack consistency. And I think that comes from just this sort of kind of like, we talk about like TikTok and Reels and all these things that are like 30-second bits of content, and that's kind of like where the attention span of young people is right now. And I think that's something that needs to kind of slow down. We talk about caffeine and stuff like back in our day, we were kind of just, drinking a cup of coffee to get the day started, but everybody's like their mind is always just so activated by stimuli on their cell phones and their computers and stuff like that. I think it's about taking a breath and sometimes taking a step back, seeing the bigger picture and saying, okay, well, if this is going to exist as a sustainable business model or entity function, there's got to be A, B, C, D, E, F. It's not just A, uploading clips every day or uploading clips when I feel like it. It's about engaging the audience. It's about having a conversation. With me, with Orphan Prodigy, it's not just about the music. It's about engaging and talking about mental health. I talked about panic disorder before, what that did to me, and agoraphobia. It's also about talking about adoption, and it's also about streaming gameplay with fans. There's a whole ecosystem and environment that makes up Orphan Prodigy as a brand. And so when you stop looking at yourself as a brand and you look at yourself as just one thing, like I'm a guitarist or I'm a singer and a guitar player and I'm a songwriter and that's all I am, in 2025, that's not going to cut it.
In 2026.
Yeah, almost 2026. Yeah, you're right. You're
I
right.
keep forgetting that we're nearly next year, my friend. So 2025 will only exist for
crazy.
like what, 20 days, 21 days.
I feel like my album just came out and that was, 6 months ago. It's crazy, man. Yeah, time flies.
It does, man. It's crazy. I was just thinking back about when I got into guitar and things like that. It feels like yesterday and also feels like a long time ago. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
But I completely understand what you're saying. Like I was bullied a lot as a kid. I'm Hungarian American. My parents are Hungarian. My dad was in the army and I was born in the States. And when I was 7, we moved to Hungary, and I had to learn Hungarian fast, and I was like the weird kid, and I was diagnosed with ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, all the disses, and I forgot English completely, which is weird because they say that whatever language you learn first, you're not going to have an accent. Well, here I am having an accent in English, but English was my first language. And
That's interesting.
And I was bullied. I was bullied a lot, and I got into guitar, and then other instruments, bass, drums, and I went to music school. And then early this year is when I was diagnosed with autism, which was like a big question mark for me. Like, oh, what does that mean? As now I was going to meetings and things like that. And I'm like, I'm me. This is me. Like, now I understand myself in a different thing, but it also gave me a way to reflect to my past to see this is why I was kind of different, if it makes sense. And you kind of have to tap into it and be honest about who you are, accept yourself and love yourself for who you are, and advocate for that and advocate for others who
own it. Absolutely own it.
Don't have that ability to talk about these sort of things, if it makes sense. So but that was and still is like a journey for me to understand what that means, because there are people who are like, oh no, you're not on this, and other people are trying to define you without even understanding your own experiences, which I'm like, well, why are you trying to tell me who I am without knowing who I am.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I think there are a lot of people out there that it's much more. Why do we have IQ tests? Why do we have you know all these different things that are trying to put us in a box, right? Like, why do we need a label for anything? Um,
Yeah.
it just make it's honestly just people wanting to just be able to understand very quickly and be able to kind of lock it in. It's like, okay, that's how we handle that. That's how we handle it. So, well, sometimes it's not that simple.
No, yeah.
Sometimes, somebody, can't walk like for me, I can't walk into a Walmart without getting triggered by the fluorescent lighting. That sets me off. Same thing in the
And that can
subways.
be an autistic thing too.
I was, when I was 23, uh my therapist thought I had Asperger's, and it's something that, like, I didn't even know what it was at the time, but um turned so it's like, it's such a and I'm sure it's like such a wide spectrum, right?
It
So
sure is, yeah.
it's like, but like at the end of the day, it's like, are you happy? Like, that's really the question. Like, are you happy? Like, we're not. I think as human beings, we tend to get lost in like what our purpose or our function is, and at the end of the day, I think it's really just, are you happy? And are
I
you
like that.
doing something that you love? And are you, I think that the sentiment of the American dream is so beautiful. No matter what's going on in the country right now, it has to be said that the sentiment of the American dream is something that I really think is truly beautiful. And that is, if you can make a living doing what you love, if given the right opportunity, that is something to be totally, it's just such a beautiful thing to be able to have, that opportunity. So, without going on too much of a tangent there, I definitely think that, just being able to do what I do, somehow make a living playing music and talking and engaging with my audience, and you know, just doing this like every day. It's I never would have imagined this was where my life would end up when I was 10 years old, listening to that single, not even playing guitar yet. So it's crazy. It's crazy where life takes you. It's crazy how life evolves into things that you just could never possibly have imagined.
What questions did you, or what did you define prior to starting this project? And I'm saying this question thing because I know a lot of things that you're doing, like if you're starting a podcast, if you're starting a new venture, there's like a set of things that you need to really understand, because otherwise you're just making shit up as you're walking. If you know what you're without a plan, if it makes sense. So how did you plan what you were doing? How were you testing? And okay, this seems to be like the way to do this. It's clicking and it's working. So what is your journey? What was your journey like in getting to the place where you are?
I think there's a lot of layers to that question.
There is.
So like in my first band, I really wanted to do what I'm doing now in Orphan Prodigy in my first band, but the other members kind of just weren't on board with the way I wanted to do things in that way. I wanted to make more of like a dance rock record, and they wanted to be stripped back and just like very Nirvana, in utero kind of thing. And yeah, so I think yeah, there's my
So
stuff kicking.
so to play off what you said, there was not a coherent end goal there because you wanted
No.
something different, and I experienced that same thing with my first company, that we all were good musicians, good producers, but we kind of had different ideas sometimes what good or what the outcome they envisioned. And there were some clashing there. It's like, the saying, too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And the
absolutely.
thing is, it took me a long time to kind of understand these are the qualities that you should look for when you are going into a partnership. You have to have very good working personalities, not clashing. You have to have skills that are complementing each other. If you do the same exact thing and you think about the same thing the same way, then you need to add something to it,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
like,
I definitely went through that with my band. We just had a different vision of things. The members each wanted, like I said, they had a very different approach to things. I was way more into making this a full-time career. And but with Orphan, all that aside, history aside, it is what it is. They're off doing their own things now,
mhm.
but they chose not to ultimately pursue this as a profession, and that's fine. But for me, I don't want to do or know. I mean, I know how to drive a forklift or work in a grocery store or whatever, but or be a barista. But I don't truly want to do anything else. I'm not driven to do anything else but create music, create worlds, create spaces and
Mm.
soundscapes and things like that. That's where I live. That's what I live for. Um, and that's kind of why this works, is because I'm doing it with passion. I'm doing it, I wake up every day loving what I do and enjoying every part of the journey. Every day is
what
different.
what did you learn from that band that you did differently in the next one?
I should have been 110% more assertive. I shouldn't have compromised at all. I mean, I should have compromised. Let me rephrase that. I should have compromised in certain areas, because when you're in a band, you are in a collaboration. You're in a collaborative environment. But I should not have sacrificed the creative vision. Um,
Mm.
so when you're in a studio, when in a studio environment, that translates to, yes, we should listen to everybody's input and stuff, but ultimately how these songs all were written, I was the sole songwriter. I've always been the sole songwriter and in all my projects. And coming from that place, everything was written on MIDI, and then they would just kind of get the MIDIs as the demo, and we would replicate them on stage.
Mm.
But or on the record. But what we should have done was taken the MIDIs, use those as a grid basically in the studio, and played to that. And so that would have allowed for so much more in terms of post production and
Mm.
just production in general. And it would have retained the original essence of what the songs were supposed to communicate in the first place, coming from me
Mm.
as the songwriter.
Now, what do you think are habits that you have acquired that are contributing to your success?
I think consistency is a big one. I think, definitely treating this with respect, because, I've worked very hard. I've worked for 20 years to get to this place, and it's not always easy, but it's something that I just enjoy. I mean, sometimes I say I'm going to end work at 8 o'clock, but I end up working until 2 a.m. and I don't even remember that I haven't even eaten anything, and I just don't care. It's like not even on my mind. It's just like, because this is what I was born to do, is just kind of create. My mind is like constantly on fire. Um, I just kind of need to do this. It's just like breathing.
I know what you mean. I remember years ago, I was doing guitars for this session, and then I get into that zone, and then I ended up sending like 40 plus tracks to the person. And he's like, "Are you crazy? You said like 40 plus tracks." I'm like, "Enjoy finding what you
Yeah.
want."
Yeah. Have fun with that.
It's like, "Whoa, this is cool. Whoa, this is cool. Let's do some harmonics. Let's do some tapping. Let's do some this."
Right. You just kind of get lost in like all, and that's the thing, is like all the possibilities, like, you never limit yourself. I think that's the other thing. You asked the question of like, what have I learned? And the other thing I've learned is to never limit myself. Like, and that goes back to like not compromising ever again. Never
Mm,
compromise your artistic vision or the
mm.
possibility of creativity. Like you're saying, with all these tracks that you had to do that you were just thinking of, you could have had 100 more, maybe, right?
Probably.
And that would have been a great thing, because you should never ever limit yourself when it comes to creativity. Just never. Like,
I,
what's the point?
I think it's better to have more than wanting more. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? Like if I'm working on a song, now I recognize that it could introduce me a little bit more work, because now I have to sift through more ideas, but it's better. Somebody said, how do you have good ideas? I'm like, you have a lot of ideas, and some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be shitty.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
That's
let me
being human.
rephrase. Some of them will work, some of them will not work as good as the others. But idea factory, both like visually. So
Absolutely.
tell me about. I'd love to know more about your hybrid touring model. What inspired it, and what's the workflow that you see working? And do you see more modern musicians kind of adapting to that sort of experience showing?
I haven't seen anybody do it quite like how we do it.
Mm,
It started through the pandemic, when I was just,
mm,
everything shut down. I flew back I was still in school at the time in Arizona. And so I flew back to New York. I was living with Danielle, and I had some backing tracks that I had kind of started to write for Orphan Prodigy. And one day I pulled out my acoustic guitar. Excuse me. I pulled out my acoustic guitar, my microphone, set up the interface, and ran the backing tracks, and just started streaming on Facebook. And I didn't
mm,
think, and it was from, there were people from my previous, like, fans of my previous work that kind of started tuning in and stuff. And some people liked it, some people didn't. They're like, "Where are the other band members?" And I was like, "What do you mean? The world is shut down," Anyway,
mm.
so I was like, but yeah, it really started. The model started in the pandemic, because out of necessity, because there was no other way to tour. You couldn't go on the road. All the venues were shut down, and so there was no other option. And I kept going with it. We kept building every year. We kept building after the after the shutdowns ended. We kept building with that model, because people kept attending. And um, there's also the second part of it, which is that I do truly have panic disorder, and I do have to kind of live a certain way that is, I guess, feasible to accommodate that. And so
Mm.
that does limit how much touring I can do. I'm not 18 anymore, where I can just go on the road and be drunk all the time, and just kind of numb everything out. Like big crowds really kind of set me off. Like times, like seeing Times Square, like like on New Year's Eve is gonna it's just like traumatizing just watching it. But props to the people who can deal with that, because I could never do that. But yeah, so the touring really is it's probably at this point, it's probably like a 70-30 split, maybe 60-40. This year we upped the in-person touring a lot more. So I think we played 34 in-person shows, and then we played, like, I don't know, 200 virtual. I mean, we do about 6 to 7 virtual shows a day in various different formats. Sometimes it's full
Wow.
band, and other times it's just me doing acoustic stuff.
Wow.
And then on top of that, we're doing the gaming streams with Danielle, and I we're streaming gameplay and stuff like Call of Duty and Battlefield and other stuff.
Dang.
But and then we're engaging with the fans. We're playing with fans, and then we're launching a Patreon. Like, we have all this other stuff going on in the background. But essentially, like, this is where I feel most comfortable, in a basement with my stuff. I can write a song if I want to. I can play a game if I want to. I can literally put on a show if I want to. Like, this is kind of like my dream. And
Mm.
maybe it doesn't look like much, because not everything's set up and everything. But when there's camera crews in here and stuff, and we have everything going, it gets pretty popping, even when there's just 20 crew people in here, so including
Wow.
the band.
That's awesome. I love it. How is your room set up to get the best creativity out of you?
I do well when I'm just at a desk. In like I kind of need the clutter. I work better when I'm in the clutter and not when I'm in like a pristine environment. Like when I go to a studio, I don't feel creative. I feel
Mm,
very much like I have to perform. And
mm,
and so when I did this record, I did it all from home. Well, a combination of rooms in the house, but um, we released our single Trader, with the one that got on the charts and stuff. And I recorded the vocals just like in a little corner over there with this mic, and and of course my vocal chain and all the processing. But like it just goes to show you can make something really great, done the way that you need it to be done. Like you can
mm,
if you have it all just comes back to passion. Like how passionate and how much do you want to do something? And
mm.
if you want if and it goes back to the saying, if there's a will, there's a way. So I had the will,
Oh, for
had the
sure.
way. There was a
I
way. So
completely relate to you with the getting nervous with big crowds. Like I remember I used to have a big band when I went to school, and whenever we had gigs with anybody, I would have to be there like at least an hour and a half before. I needed to get used to the place. I needed to kind of get comfortable with the people, and that's what gave me comfort. And then when I felt at most comfortable is also I didn't really care if I made a mistake, and then I felt more myself. Where it was Whereas on other times where if I don't feel comfortable, it feels more like a performance. So it's not a performance that comes from you, but it comes for other people that you show like a different part of you that's not the truest of you, if that makes sense.
absolutely, it does make
And it
sense.
and it's so hard to describe because yeah, there are times it's like it's gonna sound crazy, but when you feel like you have to perform in such a way where people then accept you or what they expect of you, rather than oh I can mess up and I don't care. I know what I'm doing. What I mean is I know I don't know how to explain it. It's
Yeah,
hard
I
to
know what you mean.
explain.
I know what you
help
mean.
me, help me translate.
Like proficiently what you're doing, and like from a professional standpoint, you know how to play your
Right.
instrument, you know how to, if you're a vocalist, you know how to sing. But like sometimes the room can be a little challenging in navigating that. But I don't really. I'm similar to you. I don't really like being in the venue before I'm playing. you know, well, I mean, I know actually you said the opposite.
No,
You
I
want to
said
get
the
the read.
opposite.
You
Yeah.
you want to get the read of the room. See, I'm kind of different. I would rather just show up and play, as opposed to hanging out in the venue. I like to just kind of pop up when everything's ready to go, and start playing, but that's usually not how it goes. So
Or it's like, you practice something and you're like, oh, you're in your room and like, yeah, man, I can play everything. Like everything comes out. And then you spend, I don't know, so much time learning something and you arrive to the concert and you're like, oh my God, my hands are cold. I'm tense. You suddenly don't feel like yourself, and now everybody's judging you based on that one moment alone, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not like the truest of what I am.
I see.
Which
I guess I stopped caring about what people think. I mean, it like when I'm feeling not okay, I just lean into it. Like, there's a clip of me online, where I think it's called like, it's like like Ian Keller has a meltdown or something. And it was during this tour, and it was during one of the songs. It was like probably like the seventh or eighth song in the set, and I just started to feel panicky, and it wasn't because of the crowd. It had nothing to do with the crowd. It's like sometimes the bass, gets too heavy in my chest, and
Mm,
I start to I don't feel good, and
mm,
and I just get very like, I get like overstimulated,
mm,
and I just said, "Fuck the song." Sorry, I just said, screw the song, and I took my guitar off. I just started kind of going crazy, and just and then the next song I was fine because it was a more mellow song. But it's just I don't I learned not to care what people think anymore. There's just no room, you know.
I liked how you explained it. I think you helped me kind of explain what I was meaning to say. Because with my own projects, that's how I felt about it. Because they were my songs, and who knows best to play your songs more than you do, you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I had that kind of mindset. What you helped me now explain or get through the point. But when I played for other people or other things, it felt more performative. But yeah, performance playing, it's a very interesting thing, you know. Uh, Let me see. So you said you went to a music school, right? You
Yeah.
studied music. What in specific did you study there? And what
W-
inspired you to go to a music school?
Well, it was kind of like I said earlier. It was kind of out of necessity. I had the agoraphobic thing where I couldn't leave my apartment. And I couldn't tour, so it was about kind of taking a back seat and understanding what I could do that was still musical, that wasn't performative, um, or performance based. And so, yeah, that's pretty much that's why I attended the school. But again, just a couple of weeks of learning Logic, I was right back to songwriting again. So can't take the
Nice.
you could take the songwriter out of the equation, yeah, out of Queens, but you can't take whatever.
Do you think, how do you think that school contributed to you being an entrepreneur?
Um, I don't know. I think it gave me a very good understanding, a very solid foundation of understanding how things work on a technical level where that knowledge wasn't there before. I mean, this album wouldn't have happened
Okay.
without that school and learning how things, how to route things, how to just do basic things like gain staging. Um, just very, very tech. From the engineering side, I learned so much, and I've always been interested in puzzles and things, and I just looked at everything like a puzzle, and so it's definitely helped me with everything. It helps me with the streaming setup, knowing how to connect things and how to set things up. It's helped us introduce. We use an electronic drum set when we do shows, so it's helped me sort of integrate that into the setup, just all sorts of things. This
What about the
Orphan Prodigy,
business? What about
the
the business side of
the
things?
business, it's definitely I don't know that it so much helped me with the business side of things. It's definitely there were business classes involved, music business classes, in terms of contracts. So I think if we're talking about contracts, then certainly it did influence my knowledge about musical contracts, for sure.
Yeah, I talk a lot about that because one thing that I wish the school had taught me more was more of the entrepreneurship and business of now you know all this musical thing. How can you create a sustainable career out of it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this school was geared towards musical engineering and production. It wasn't geared towards being an artist. So a lot of their rhetoric was like, go out and do this gig, do that gig, do that gig. Manage wires, clean up cables. Do that kind of stuff. I was like, no, I'm going to write songs instead. So I took the knowledge that the school gave me and I implemented it in a very different
Mm,
way. Because I'd been involved in, my previous band, I had also been involved in contracts that were bad, and I've learned from
oof.
those mistakes, and you know, I'm very grateful in 2025, almost 2026, to be an independent artist and not signed to some major label. I think the major label model is just dumb, and prehistoric, and it's completely not for the artist. It's very much um, just a dying business model.
Hmm. What is the new business model?
To be an entrepreneur in 2026, 2025, 2026. It's about being an independent artist or entrepreneur and embracing technology and using technology to communicate your message. It's like having an idea in your head and being a guitar player and then being able to communicate that idea on a guitar, or in a being a singer and singing the words. It's the same thing. Just using tools to communicate a message and building a business from that.
And what do you think would be crucial things to know? So now if somebody comes out of school, music school, and they are an entrepreneur, what do you think are key factors or key things they need to define for themselves for better success?
I think they need to define their identity, what they're trying to sell or what they're trying to be, and then what they're trying to sell. And then they also, as I mentioned earlier too, they also need to identify what their potential demographic is and who they're selling to, who they're marketing to. They also they have to have a understanding of how to market themselves too, because obviously marketing is a huge part of being successful. You can have the best song or the best movie or the best game in the world, but if you're not marketing to the right people at the right scale, you're not going to get very far.
Exactly. And that's kind of like what anything you start doing, being an artist or starting a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever, there are all these defining questions, that you have to answer, because otherwise you're walking a path without the path.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's talk about your new single. If I remember correctly, it came out recently, right?
Yeah, we have a new single out called Deep Bass. It's the only collaboration I've ever done in my entire life. It was with my best friend, Jeff Wise, who raps on it. And it's the third song on the album, and it's a really different kind of direction. People say like, "Oh, the rap rock thing." It's like kind of like a Linkin Park thing, but it's just melody with rapping and a really cool beat. I really think it's one of the best songs on the album.
Really? And why now? You said you haven't collaborated until now. What was the difference now that made you say, I want to do that collaboration?
I think it was another necessity thing. It was like I just had an idea in my head. I was like, it was just, it could have been like any other idea I've ever had, but this particular idea, I had the music written. I had kind of these lyrics that I was messing around with, and I had this whole kind of vibe and image around what I wanted to do with the song. But I really wanted to experiment with rapping, and I'm not a rapper, so I don't, but my friend had actually mentioned that he was working on something too, but he was looking for a song that was already kind of written. And so we just kind of said, "Hey, let's do it." And we recorded it over the pandemic, and we kind of held back. We shot the video recently, and after the album came out, it was like, okay, well, let's release this one as a single, because it's obviously like a really cool song, and it's something different that is kind of unexpected from Orphan Prodigy. So it was like, yeah, let's release it.
What's the core emotion or message you want listeners to get out of that song?
Well, the song's called Deep Bass, and I think that's me just kind of saying like it's a deep song. It's like a very, like a very emotional song. There's a lot of emotion in that song, and especially in Jeff's lyrics, there's a lot of nostalgia about childhood and like kind of like first love and stuff like that. And my part in it is just kind of the driving of the instruments, and like the kind of like I'm complementing with melody a little bit, melodic lyrics, and it's just a very cool color. It's a very cool color on the record. I love it.
Hmm. What is your workflow like?
So my workflow, I guess, I mean, these days it's very much like, I wake up and we're pretty much there's a pretty much preordained itinerary there. Like, so, Monday, for instance, there's like, okay, I know I'm going to be doing at least 7 shows. We're going to record 3 to release later in the week. We're going to shoot 4 live. We're going to do some streaming for gameplay later that evening. And then there's all the press in between, like stuff like right now, like we're doing this interview. So there's a lot of different, every day has a different structure. But typically I work 6 days a week. And it's really more like 7, because you never really stop working, because you're still answering emails and you're still planning things. My publicist, Danny, who introduced us,
Danny Felt.
She, it's funny because
Yeah.
I actually knew Danny I met Danny back in 2011 at some networking
Whoa.
event. And then it just happened that in 2025, we reconnected over Facebook, and she didn't remember who I was. I was like, I met you before. It's like,
Wow.
so yeah, it was just I met her in New York, and she's been great publicist for us. And but yeah, as far as the workflow goes, every day there's Monday through Saturday of pure schedules. It's like literally an itinerary every week that we get from our managers.
Oh, wow. So you have multiple managers.
Well, it's actually like a husband and wife team. They manage
Oh, wow.
us, and they manage us, and they've been very good to us. We're very, very grateful for them believing in us enough to support us and support me to make this record as I wanted it to be made, without compromising the vision. And I think partially they signed me because they saw what I was doing during the pandemic. They saw the business model. So there's really not a lot of overhead in what we do. Everything, as you can see, is pretty much taken care of. I mean, obviously the drums aren't in the room and stuff, but like, if they were, everything is taken care of. We shoot our own shows, we edit our own stuff, we make our own albums here in house. It's like, all the content is us. We just need somebody to just sort of, like Danny, to sort of push it out into where it needs to go, understanding the demographic. We need managers to sort of kind of manage the business elements. So, I'm very fortunate to have people in my corner in this day and age.
So if I imagine kind of like the workflow, you are taking care of the creative output, recording the songs, writing the songs, recording the songs, both video and audio aspect, and everything is in-house done. So there's no need to go to a studio. And you have a publicist who is Danny Felt, our common friend.
Correct.
And
Correct.
and when you say we, that's you and your bandmates?
Yes, me and my bandmates and the crew. Really, I mean, we have a couple of people on crew that are just travel with us when we tour, and then also we have a separate production crew that's
Wow.
responsible for the lighting and the shooting of the live streams and handling all that stuff.
Wow. So how big is the team?
How big is what?
The team. How big is the team?
So on staff, I think we had to we had to let somebody go just a few days ago. They weren't able to continue with us for personal reasons, but family reasons or something. But right now it's 19.
Holy cow. That is something. Who is the person who oversees this entire crew?
So our managers deal with the crew.
Managers. Wow.
They deal with the hiring and the firing.
Like you said earlier, marketing is an incredibly important aspect. If you have a great song, you have a great song, but nobody yet knows about it. which is where marketing comes in. So who mostly deals and what sort of marketing strategies do you guys do?
So I guess it's a combination between the managers, whatever they do. There's obviously a budget that's allocated for marketing, and then Danny also has marketing opportunities for us that we take advantage of, if the opportunity feels right. And a lot of the times it does, so we take it.
Awesome. And do you run YouTube channel, all the social medias?
So I run the Instagram. I run the Facebook, and we split the YouTube. The YouTube stuff is split between me, Danielle, and sometimes the managers, depending on what the content is.
Interesting. What have you learned doing social media?
That it's can be very consuming. It can be very time consuming,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to the marketing side of things. Um, you know, I wish it was a little more optimized for people like me who aren't really that dedicated to marketing, but that's why we have managers and people like, Danny to help us with that kind of stuff.
What do you see in terms of difference between organic and ad-based marketing?
I think you need both. I think it's great to have organic marketing. I don't think that. I mean, you know how algorithms are. Sometimes, depending on if it's a Monday, the algorithm gods will be like, nope, you're not. Nope, your content sucks. We're not going to push it. Especially with platforms like YouTube, which are getting much more tight and strict. Um,
Mm, I've seen different
it's
things nowadays, but
It
I,
depends
I
on the content, and like,
I
sometimes if
manage.
you get sometimes if you get flagged once for something, like we did a Call of Duty stream, where we played through the entire single player. Danielle and I played through the entire single player, and for some reason that video was an issue. I don't know if it wasn't a copyright strike. It wasn't like there was copyrighted music. We turned all that stuff off. Like, all that stuff was
Mhm.
taken care of. For some reason, um, I don't know. But like, that's what I mean. Like, like sometimes things are not always
What do you
on a
mean,
level
like
playing field.
it didn't get a lot of impressions, or they didn't push the video,
The
or
video was
what?
fine. The video was actually fine. We had a really great night with our fans streaming it and stuff, but for some reason the video got flagged, and YouTube didn't really give us an explanation as to why it was flagged. It was
Interesting.
just flagged, and subsequently our next few video content posts suffered from that. So
Interesting. Interesting.
it's something we're still working to rectify, actually. So.
Interesting. What do you think is the antidote for that? Don't
Just
know.
playing, just playing by the rules. I think, again, it goes back to consistency, and just keep doing what I was doing that was working. Um, you know, keep uploading the live clips, keep uploading the shorts, the funny stuff, the music stuff, just everything.
It's
Just
yeah, it's
staying to the schedule. Really just being consistent again.
yeah. I've seen that the strategy for shorts and for long form content are completely different, and the way both of
Yep.
them get
Yep.
impressions different. Like for a long time, I used my original YouTube channel, the what used to be called Danny Nagy Music. Now it's called Danny Nagy Productions. I used it as like a um how should I call it? Where you just like a platform that shows your video content.
Mhm.
But when I got super into more deep into YouTubing, I learned like the more niched you are, the more specific, just like what we talked about, like defining your niche, defining your why, and your brand and stuff like that. Like I have a wedding, because I do wedding videography. I have just a wedding based YouTube channel, and I had videos there that got 30, 40,000 views in days, and stuff like that, because that was more set up for just that niche, and that's a luxurious niche. And when I started posting all over, like one day me playing guitar, other day posting like a documentary film on my YouTube, the algorithms like, the fuck are you showing here?
Yeah, yeah.
We don't know what niche you're in, so
Right.
it's confused. And then when I got into super into AI, and I was doing like AI avatars, then all of a sudden I didn't get barely views, because it's like, oh, so you're not real?
Right, right, yeah.
I'm like,
Exactly.
okay.
That's the thing. It just takes one thing for it to say, "Oh, nope," and then the rest of the content suffers
Yep. So like
indefinitely.
I had good runs for shorts, and then I posted one like AI video in my short feed, and all of a sudden that tanked all my views, and I'm like,
Right,
oh shit, now you
right.
got to do a reset, not post anything for like a couple of days, and then reintroduce periodically. It's such a strategy,
Yeah,
man.
it
It's
is.
like my mind sometimes blows up by like, sometimes I feel like I don't understand a single thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. I mean, it changes every single day, and it's just
Yeah.
it's just, it's just somebody, some engineer is like, well, we're just gonna literally just press a button and say this is gonna change the entire algorithm. Like, it's
Yeah,
just silly decisions.
think what I read recently is YouTube soft launched Gemini into the system of YouTube, where whenever you're uploading a video, Gemini already like scans not only the
Yeah,
transcript but the video itself.
right.
And that's why like SEO and things like that will be not that relevant. However, they all the YouTube coaches, I don't know if you have heard of vidIQ. vidIQ is predominantly for, you heard of it.
Yeah,
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 I love using vidIQ. There, I either use that or TubeBuddy, but vidIQ I do a lot of research in, and I used to have a YouTube coach for 2 months on vidIQ, and that was kind of interesting. Yeah, there's so much learning, man.
yeah. It's
But
never
yeah, like
ending.
you said, systems and consistency. Like, uh, I produced this gentleman's podcast called My Manhood Matters, which is predominantly black man's mental health and how that's looked down on, not, or he's trying to put stress into that topic. And what I've noticed is a very clear upward trend, but he stopped doing it, and the whole YouTube is like kind of going nowhere now.
Hmm.
And that's why, like, one of the questions you got to ask, or people who want to start a podcast or any channel, is, am I going to be able to stay consistent?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
if not, that's going to hinder a lot of growth. Just like you said, consistency is one of the most important thing. And that's why when I try to work on my podcast, I try to shoot a bunch of content and batch record it, and then schedule the whole thing for like 3-4 months out, so that I have a system for the marketing of that. I have a system for the short form content to go out, the long form, and all of that. My new funnel actually is, I have a separate shorts channel, a separate clips channel, and then the full channel. I'm kind of modeling Huberman Labs and Joe Rogan. A lot of podcasters, they have separate channels because, again, the algorithm. So
Right,
whenever you're posting a shorter or a different type of format, it's already a little different.
right, right.
And I'm gonna start running localized ads so that people around Nashville know more about this podcast and who it's for. Because when I started, honestly, I just wanted to get into the habit of doing it. And if you look at the first episodes with Danny Fell and stuff, it's in my old studio with one mic and one camera. And then
Right.
I went kind of like with the, what's his name, the Mr. Beast advice. Is like, do 100 episodes and try to do something different, something better in the next episode. But then again, it's like what we talked about. If you don't define these sort of things, that can cause your growth to take longer, which I think what kind of happened, and why I think the wedding YouTube channel, even though I don't have a lot of subscribers, I have a lot more views overall,
Right.
which is
Yeah, it's just
interesting. Yes, I had some more like, oh yeah, some. So, if I can ask, as an independent artist, where do you see the most revenue nowadays coming from?
so for us, it's definitely the virtual shows. We have a model where uh in the beginning we weren't charging anything, but because we have to, eventually we saw that this was going to be a defined business model, a very big part of it. We set up through our website, you can purchase e-tickets, electronic digital tickets, and have them sent to your email, and that's how you attend our virtual shows.
Hmm.
And it's as simple as just entering the code in, clicking the link, whatever it is. I don't even know how it works anymore. It's always changing. They're always upgrading it. So, but yeah, there's like a private page on our website, orphanprodigy.com, and you just log in there and type in your code, and you're good to go to watch the show.
Awesome.
And
What?
we charge, depending on what the format is. If it's if it's an hour show, then we'll do like 10, $15 a person. If they there's the option to get multiple shows for a discount. We have all this whole different tier system.
Mm. Do you sell merch?
Yes. Yeah, it's directly through our website.
Mm. How did you convey the value of your music to the audience, where they see the value of it and they purchase these tickets and merch?
I think it speaks for itself. I mean, I think, the fact that people are still willing to show up and have a conversation. We do these streams just like I'm talking to you now, where people just want to kind of hang out and talk, and maybe Danielle and I are streaming gameplay, and we're just hanging out talking about music, talking about the game. And that keeps people kind of seeing not just the music, but like a bigger picture of what Orphan Prodigy is as a brand. And I think that's the key thing. We kind of return to this idea that we are, at the end of the day, we're entrepreneurs, and it's not just about the music. The music is my favorite part of it, and there wouldn't be an Orphan Prodigy without it, but it is bigger than just the music.
Mm. Now, let me ask you this. What's one business lesson you wish you learned sooner?
Oh man, there's so many. I don't even know
I
where to be.
know.
I don't even know where to begin. Lesson that I wish I learned. I think that being probably being independent would have been the way to go from the start, and just stuck to that, not like pursuing like some big major label deal. I should have just I would have said, don't do that. That's a mistake. Just stick to your guns and hit the ground running, and don't look back.
Now, do you think if you didn't do it, that you would have gotten to the same conclusion? Because you probably have learned a lot doing that.
I think I would have eventually came to the same conclusion. I think that's partially due to technology and how it's advancing, or maybe mostly technology, because again, technology is the tool, and this is just microphone. These are just screens and cameras and lights, but again, they're helping me talk to you now and helping me convey a message to you, and that's the same
Mm-hmm.
way I'm writing songs in Logic. It's just it's the same thing. It's just communicating a message with a tool. So I
Why
think
do you think? Oh, I'm sorry. Go.
no, I think I would have reached the same conclusion eventually.
Mm. Why do you think most artists struggle to build something financially sustainable?
I think maybe there's a boring. I mean, listen. I mean, not every aspect of being an indie artist and trying to be an entrepreneur at the same time is fun. Learning business is not fun. I mean, that was for me when I was 18, and anybody would mention, the money or anything like that. And that's kind of what drove my first band apart, was when the money became an issue, and it was starting to turn to a business with deals and lawyers and all these things.
Mm.
That's when it stopped being fun. It
Mm.
wasn't, but now as somebody in their 30s, it's like, it's fun. It's just another element, So I think there you
Oh,
have, again, it comes back to being consistent and knowing how far you want to take something. Again, it's about willpower. You have to want it.
willpower. I like that word. I mean, it's like if a lot of people join gyms and they want to look good, but to look good, it's a two form factor. You got to be consistent in the gym and you got to be consistent eating better.
Exactly. It's like they
You
say, I
know,
think they say it's like 80% diet
yeah.
and 20% gym.
But you do have to work out because if you don't work out,
Yeah, it's
you're just
both.
gonna look skinny and not like
Yeah, yeah.
more tone. But you know the gist of that. So if everybody who went to the gym just got there, then I don't know. I don't know what I was gonna say there. The consistency,
Yeah.
Um, let's see. What advice would you give your younger self or an artist nowadays who's trying to make it as an artist?
Just be yourself, be 120% yourself. Don't make sacrifices or compromises. Don't be afraid of people. Don't be afraid of negative responses. Um, just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be yourself. That's what I'd say.
How do you deal with negativity?
Oh, it eats me alive. No,
I think
no,
that's one of the hardest things to learn.
yeah, no, no, especially. I mean, for me, I don't read comments. I mean, listen, I do manage the Instagram and the Facebook, and I do say, I've seen negative comments um before, and the best way to I just kind of try to kill with kindness, and I'm just there as everything at the end of the day is feedback. Even if somebody's trying to be mean, sometimes there's a bit of feedback in there. If you read between the lines, there's actually
Mm.
something that you can use that and turn something negative into something positive that you can use for yourself to do something better the next time around.
What sort of negative advice have you turned into a positive?
So, like somebody said, "Oh, the yeah." So we did a concert in Brooklyn a couple of weeks ago, and we started releasing some of the footage from that show. And somebody was like, "Oh, why they?" It was the show was running really late, and so we had to kind of jump on stage, set up all our stuff, jump on stage, shoot. It was being recorded by 4 cameras, the whole thing. And first they wanted to cut our set, and I was like, no, you're not cutting our set. It's we came here to shoot the show, like, as a production. Like, we're not shortening the set. So there was that. And then there was the part where I we didn't really have time to properly communicate with the production team, like where I should be standing so as not to be blocking the drummer and that kind of thing. So I ended up standing right in front of Alan, our drummer, hoping that he was like off to the side enough where he could be in the same shot, right, for the full band shot, but he wasn't. So this person on Facebook said, "Why are you blocking Alan? Like, like you're not a good video. Like, it's a terrible video." Like, it's just like
Mm.
I was just, and it's not a bad video at all. It's a good video. It sounds great. But I am blocking Alan, and so I just responded. I was just like, thanks for the feedback. Like, just for some context, everything I just told you. The show was running
Right.
like 45 minutes behind and all this stuff, so we didn't have time to communicate with the production crew, and so this is what happened. That's live music.
Wow, interesting. Which platform do you put the most stress to
Every uh, well, it depends
in
on the
terms of
content.
social media?
So I guess it depends on the content, but in terms of like unified content, like if we're releasing like a music short or something, it'll go to Instagram, it'll go to Facebook, and it'll go to YouTube. So um, when it comes to personal stuff, Instagram for sure, Facebook maybe is like second place for that. Um, so yeah, it really just depends on the medium that we're operating in.
No TikTok?
You, we have it. We haven't really tried to do it as much as we would have liked. I guess I don't know. It's one of those things that's kind of sitting in the background. We haven't really tackled it yet. But I don't know. Maybe.
Do you have a different account for the gaming, or you merge the gaming with the
No,
band
so we
account?
merge. Yeah, no, we merge it
Why did you make that decision?
because we wanted to keep everything under the same umbrella. We wanted to have a unified vision. We didn't want to separate the music from the gaming because the gaming and the music are they're it's the same people, it's the same world. So, it's not a click away. It's not another channel away. It's literally on the same channel. You don't have to
Mm,
scroll over. Literally just check out, hey, you want to check out our music? You're in the chat live with us right now. You could just literally just check out the channel and go through the music videos if you want. And
mm.
that creates retention.
Awesome. So you play your songs while you're playing the game?
Sometimes. Sometimes.
Oh, gotcha. Awesome. This is gonna be a doozy one, but if you were to start from zero today as an artist, what would you do? Knowing what you know right now.
Oh man. If I was gonna, I think it'd be a lot easier. I think it would be if I had all the knowledge, life experience and stuff. I mean, I would just hit the ground running. I would have made this album 10 years ago, you know? I would have done this in a day. I would have I don't know. I would have just hit the ground running. That's all I can say.
Do you feel that mixed type of performance is more where music is heading in terms of performance?
It's hard
Or
to
is it
say.
just
I think music has taken a very interesting kind of turn. I think it depends on the genre. Like for the metal scene, for instance, there's a lot of like metal for whatever reason. There's a lot of like local metal shows, and there's a lot of people that will go out to metal shows. Like alternative rock, like the stuff that I'm doing, it's kind of hit or miss, especially for new bands. But uh, for I just know what works for us. I'm not very much out there in the world, like kind of like knowing what's going on. I just, I'm just doing what we do. But as far and having said that, I know what works for us, and I know that the hybrid model works for us on many
mm,
levels, not just because of audience retention and stuff. It's because I physically, mentally need to be able to do this in this model. I can't be on the road the entire year. It's just not going to work for me.
mm. Awesome. Wow. Where do you think music is headed with all this that's going on, and the value, like where how people valued the music before, the ease of consumption of it versus now?
I think I think it can go one of two ways. I don't really think there's a middle ground. I think because with the integration with the advancements in AI and stuff, I think that there's going to be a lot of people that feel very much against it, and they're going to go support music like locally and buying physical records and things like that. And there's going to be the other side of the spectrum who is more into the digital stuff, and they're going to totally embrace the stuff that has to do with AI, and they're going to really love what AI can do, and how far technology can take this experience. Because, like with us, we love using visuals and stuff like that. So it's again, I don't think there's very much middle ground. I think it's kind of like just what crowd are you in? You know.
Awesome. Wow, interesting. What's next for Orphan Prodigy? What's coming up for 2026?
Well, we're hitting well, obviously we're having Christmas at home finally. Usually I'm playing a show on Christmas Eve. This is the first time I'm not playing a show in my life on Christmas Eve, as far as my professional career goes. But um so we're doing a another single, the title track, Medication for Modern World, which will be shot over shot in January, and then we'll release it probably in early spring.
Awesome, awesome. How often do you hope to release new material?
Well, we're gonna probably extend this. The plan is that Medication from Our World is going to be 2 years before we do the next record. So 2026 will be that second year into the album cycle. And I'm not going to. I'm not supposed to say this, but I have to kind of say it in the context. We're actually remixing the album for 2026, so that we give it a second wind of life, second wind, and another reason to listen.
Awesome. Where can people find you and connect with you guys?
Yeah, so you can find us at orphanprodigy.com, social media, Instagram at Orphan Prodigy, Facebook.com at Orphan Prodigy Music, or Facebook.com Orphan Prodigy Music, YouTube at Orphan Prodigy, and if you want, TikTok at Orphan Prodigy.
Easy peasy, but also you guys out there, listeners and viewers, links will be in the description, and go find Orphan Prodigy, hit a like, share, subscribe, and also check out other videos and like, share, subscribe of Caffeinated Creatives. Now, let me ask you this, is there anything else that you would like to share with the people?
Just be good people, be good to each other, be good to each other. Live every day like it's your last, and love what you do.
Very well said. Very well said. Thank you so much, Orphan Prodigy, or Ian.
Thanks
if
for having
I
me.
could say that.
Of course.
I appreciate it. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. So I will let you know when everything is going live. So let me stop the recording. Again, if you guys liked it, please like, share, subscribe. And that was Caffeinated Creatives. Make sure to check out the future videos.